began to commit. Out in front of them was a range of intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, and tactical assets. And immediately these runners began to see, sense, and feel America's combat power compressing upon them. The lead ship, normally a destroyer as depicted here, along with air power off of the USS Abraham Lincoln Strike Group, began to move towards those ships. At each point, the United States Navy will transmit a warning. A young sailor, normally on the bridge of one of those destroyers, a junior officer, picks up that mic and transmits, and I quote, "Do not attempt to breach the blockade. Vessels will be boarded for interdiction and seizure transiting to or from Iranian ports. Turn around or prepare to be boarded. If you do not comply with this blockade, we will use force." And as this message is being transmitted, as I mentioned earlier, those shipmasters can literally see, sense, and feel the pressure around them. It's a finely tuned machine, rehearsed multiple times, and executed now 13 times since the blockade has begun. Next slide, please. We're now 24 hours plus into the blockade. You can see the turning around of multiple ships, 12 of which stayed inside the blockade line, one of which not depicted off to the eastern side, turned around before even attempting it. Any ship that would cross the blockade would result in our sailors executing pre-planned tactics designed to bring the force to that ship, if need be, board the ship and take her over. And that includes a series of escalated force options, which could include warning shots and others. Next slide. The final graphic shows taken at 11:20 p.m. the night of 14 April. You can see that the captains of all these ships have made the wise decision not to move, transit, or run this blockade. As I mentioned, so far 13 ships have made the wise choice of turning around. And as we continue to hold this blockade at the order of the Secretary and the President, any vessel that compares to comply with our instructions will be dealt with accordingly. As of this morning, U.S. Central Command has not been required to board any particular ships. And I'll remind you that we are also conducting similar maritime interdiction actions and activities in the Pacific AOR against those ships that left that area before we began the blockade. Before I turn it over to Admiral Cooper, I want to talk briefly today about the men and women enforcing the blockade, America's sailors and Marines, and today particularly our destroyer and surface forces. When we talk about an American destroyer, it's important that you and the American people understand their capabilities. An Arleigh Burke-class destroyer are the backbone of the United States Navy surface fleet. Over 500 feet long, they displace 9,000 tons, and it is the sports car of the United States Navy. From the keel to the mast, they stand nearly 10 stories tall, and their 4 gas turbine engines can drive the ship at 30+ knots. These ships are armed to the teeth with surface-to-air missiles, land attack cruise missiles, anti-ship missiles, anti-submarine rockets, torpedoes, 5-inch naval guns, multiple electronic warfare systems, embarked helicopters, extending the reach and capability of each and every one of these destroyers. But far and away, the most important weapon on board these ships is the American sailor. Over 300 warfighters are the heart and soul of these warships. At sea, sometimes for months, and these ships out in the CENTCOM AOR have been out there for months. They operate around the clock in a constant state of readiness, always delivering for our joint force. It's hot in the engine room. The engineering team keeps the lights on and the ship powered and able to respond to the orders from the bridge. On that bridge, our sailors maintain a constant watch, maneuvering the ship tactically and safely through always congested water space. And there is a lot out there. It is like driving a sports car through a supermarket parking lot on a payday weekend with thousands of kids in that parking lot as you attempt to maneuver through there to get to that ship that would attempt to run that blockade. Down in the Combat Information Center, the CIC, the Tactical Warfare Center of the ship, that is where the decisions are made. As threats appear, these young sailors are making real-time decisions on how to identify these threats and handle them, and they always deliver. These ships are run by the youngest sailors in our surface warfare Navy. The helmsman, the sailor on the watch at the bridge, is normally just between 18 to 19 years old, and they are trusted to drive this warship through that supermarket parking lot without hitting anything. The conning officer, an equally young commissioned officer who's normally just a few years out of college, is the ones that are giving that young helmsman the orders on where to take that American warship to execute the mission that the Secretary and the President has given us. These are incredibly well-trained sailors. They are led by incredible leaders, salty, experienced leaders, and trusted with deep responsibility. And I'm so humbled and proud of America's Navy. These sailors choose to take the road less traveled to go into the historic surface Navy, and they deliver every single day. Finally, as I often do, I want to highlight one of those surface sailors today and remember our fallen. Today we remember Ensign Robert Thompson of the U.S. Laffey, who died on this day in 1945 in the Battle of Okinawa. He was killed while fighting a fire along with 31 others as 2 Japanese kamikaze aircraft hit their ship. He passed away 1 week after his 22nd birthday and was posthumously awarded the Navy Cross. We remember Ensign Thompson today and all of our World War II vets who continue to give us the gift of a great example. And those surface warfare sailors who are out there doing the job right now take the courage, grit, and determination that those World War II vets gave us into these actions and activities that they're tasked to do every single day. So now I'd like to turn it over to Admiral Cooper to give us a readout of his recent trip to the region.
Well, good morning, and Mr. Secretary, thank you for the kind invitation, and Chairman, great to join you. It's a real honor to be here representing the more than 50,000 American service members deployed throughout the Middle East today, supporting operations. And it's great to have the opportunity to highlight the tremendous efforts our warfighters operating forward and the important partnerships with regional allies that continue to thrive. In fact, yesterday I returned from my second trip to the Middle East in the past 15 days. 2 very different visits. One during our offensive operations against Iran, and the second, in this most recent trip, during the ongoing ceasefire. Very different. During both of my recent trips, I visited with our troops who were deployed across the region in more than 70 different locations, in a distance that largely spans between Florida and Arizona. I've long believed that every success that we have starts and ends with our people, and boy does this shine through brightly. During these visits, I had the privilege of personally recognizing more than 100 servicemen and women for their extraordinary valor, their courage, and their initiative under fire and delivering fire. And every time I interact with these young men and women downrange, I am deeply inspired by their courage, their resilience, and their unwavering commitment. The stories are remarkable. In many cases, you've seen this play out over TV. Fighter pilots who took out Iranian missile launchers in the moments prior to their launch against Americans and our partners, and who hit key military targets in and around Tehran on the attack more than 13,000 times. I met with some of the teams that helped to bring our F-15 airmen home safely from Iran and heard first-person accounts of the stories. Absolute heroes. I spent time with our troops who are employing cutting-edge tactics and technology for the first time in warfare. I won't be able to talk about what those are, but these young men and women are breaking new ground. It's incredibly inspiring. I met with teams who launched our own one-way attack drones into Iran. These were originally Iranian-designed drones. We brought them back to America, took the guts out, put a made American stamp on them, and fired them right back to Iran. Very effective. I met with teams who were employing AI every single day to help us sift through vast amounts of information to help us make decisions faster. And importantly, humans are always in the loop in this process. I met with our Space Force teams and our cyber specialists, whose work cannot be discussed, but who serve with indispensable impact. I met with our logisticians and sustainers all over the region. There is just no military that executes logistics like the U.S. military. This group is doing exceptional work, moving thousands of tons every single day. I met with our air defenders who shot down Iranian ballistic missiles. My message for this group in particular is that their actions most certainly saved thousands of lives across the Middle East during Epic Fury. And all told, my personal assessment is, after these couple of trips, is our troops are highly motivated, they're focused, they're vigilant, and they're ready. And they're using this time to do a couple of things. We're rearming, we're retooling, and we're adjusting our tactics, techniques, and procedures. There's no military in the world that adjusts like we do, and that's exactly what we're doing right now during the ceasefire. A little note about partners. My discussion with regional allies and partners, both at the senior civilian level and the senior military level, reinforced our shared commitment to regional security. But beyond that, having now fought together, side by side, I assess that our military partnerships are stronger than ever as we continue to maintain a very active defense posture across the region during this ceasefire. And that posture stretches across the entire Arabian Peninsula, and it runs from northern Iraq all the way down into the northern Arabian Gulf. In creating the largest air defense umbrella in the world across the Middle East, we embedded specially trained U.S. military air defenders alongside our partner nation soldiers, side by side, literally side by side. And to give you a sense of their contribution and impact, the King and Crown Prince of Bahrain both personally knew our soldiers by name. These leaders expressed appreciation for our service member who continue to stand shoulder to shoulder with our partners in support of regional defense. And this is a sentiment that is widely shared across every Gulf ally. I heard this message over and over again, which is, we stand with you. As the Secretary and the Chairman have said, Bahrain, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Kuwait, and Jordan have been exceptional teammates. I had a chance to meet with both their senior leadership as well as their troops. Boy, equally inspiring and equally committed to mutual defense. They defended Americans and they defended their own country. It was inspiring. And there's been no better teammate than Israel. Together, the four best air forces in the world, the Israeli Air Force, the U.S. Air Force, and the air forces of the U.S. Navy and U.S. Marine Corps, together met and exceeded our own military objectives over and over again. Twice in the past 2 weeks, I've met with the Israeli Chief of Defense to ensure that we remain closely aligned, and we do. And then finally, let me just close by saluting the brave men and women who are in uniform and who continue to answer the call with unrivaled lethality, great teamwork, and resolve. We've asked them to stay ready during this period, and that's exactly what they're doing. I couldn't be prouder, and I know that you and the American people are sharing that same pride. Thank you so much.
I'll take a few questions. Go ahead.
Thank you. Alexandra Ingersoll, One American News. How is the Iranians' decimated command and control affecting the ceasefire at this juncture? Ergo, how are we enforcing a ceasefire with an enemy who has virtually no command and control? And then one other question about the Houthis being, have the Houthis been an issue in the Straits of Hormuz and the Bab al-Mandab Strait at the Red Sea, or are we tracking that militarily?
Appreciate that. On the ceasefire front, it's right. Their command and control capabilities are highly degraded, so their ability to talk, see, sense is at the worst it's ever been. But their motivation to want to stay in the ceasefire is very high because they understand that a violation of that ceasefire means a commencement, once again, of Admiral Cooper's forces, which went very poorly for them. So they have a high incentive to maintain that ceasefire, even though they can't talk and organize as well as they'd like to. And as far as the Houthis, thus far, they have stayed out of it, which, of course, we think is a good decision by them, and I think is a reflection of the fact that over a year ago in Operation Rough Rider, we had an ongoing and intense campaign that demonstrated American capabilities, which has them hesitating to want to do something on that strait, which I think would be a poor choice.
Good morning, Mr. Secretary, gentlemen. David Zia, Real America's Voice. As commercial shipping ramps up, you know, it was 130 ships a day going through that. As that happens, ships have to anchor up, right, and wait to pass through the narrow strait. Is there any progress with an international force to phase out U.S. military-led escorts or other? Is anyone stepping up to do that
It's a great question.
long term?
They should be. There's a lot of talk, and what we've seen in this conflict from allies, there's a lot of talk, except for the ones that were mentioned by Admiral Cooper in the region, who've been phenomenal. Other allies have talked a lot and haven't done anything. And as the President has pointed out, this is a waterway that the American commerce doesn't use all that much. We don't rely on the energy coming out of the Strait of Hormuz, but Asia does, and Europe does, and large parts of the rest of the world do. And so their ability to muster a collective defense or a clearing of the straits would be a wonderful thing. And we hear and see the talk about it, but when the shots were fired and those countries were needed the most, they weren't there. They weren't in the strait, they weren't alongside us, their leaders weren't rallying what they have of their navies. If they decide after CENTCOM does the heavy lifting, which again, they should be able to do. We should live in a world where other countries can defend waterways, not just the United States Navy. Should that conclude, which we believe it will, then we would welcome other countries coming in after the fact. But you can't live in a world in perpetuity, and this is a message to the rest of the world and our allies, where you just rely on America to continually do the heavy lifting. Oh, Iran might get a nuclear bomb. Who's going to do something about it? America. And America only. Other allies need to invest in their capabilities so they can project power and do basic tasks like clearing a strait. So we're not counting on it, but it would be wonderful to see it if it ever materialized. Yes?
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Thank you all for your time. I have a couple questions. I know you said a few weeks ago that Iran's supreme leader was wounded and disfigured. Do you have an update on whether he's even alive at this point? And then another question for you. Iranian embassy accounts are sharing an AI video of Jesus Christ kind of bloodily killing President Donald Trump. Does the Pentagon have a response to this, including the fact that this AI Jesus is casting Trump into hell? And then finally, for Admiral Cooper, could you speak to us about the morale of the American service members that you're seeing in the Middle East? I think Americans are really interested in what their experiences and testimonies are like.
As far as the status of the individual you mentioned, I believe it's the same. Not a lot coming from him right now, understandably so, a lot of fear. Believed to be alive, wounded, and disfigured. Status remains the same. As far as a video like that, of course, that's disgusting and detached from reality. Iran says a lot of things in the propaganda space based on complete lies, and their actions have been lies. Oh, we don't target. We see missiles going into civilian facilities and hotels in the Gulf states. They say we only target military targets, as you watch drones and missiles go into. So they are going to misrepresent, lie, spin in a multitude of ways, which we are quite used to. Ultimately, they need to come to the table and make a deal. And I'll hand it over to Admiral Cooper first.
Yeah, I would just reiterate my previous comment. Morale is very high. And anyone in the military can take about 2 seconds to figure out what morale